nothing more ripe for drama than human relationships, and there's perhaps no bigger spectacle therein than the wedding. Ergo, the commune of wrestling love is one fraught with danger, much like the dreaded contract signing and inevitable table spot when characters announce their intentions to marry. The question is not a matter of if it will go wrong, but how badly. I'm Cy for WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most scandalous wrestling weddings ever. Number 10. Al Wilson and Dawn Marie. Just 6 months after her first appearance on TV, Dawn Marie found herself a part of one of the worst storylines of both 2002 and 2003. In October 2002, Marie revealed that she was in a relationship with Al Wilson, a man 20 years her senior and the father of fellow diva Tori, who was quite rightfully upset. Just 3 weeks later, Al found himself on one knee in a SmackDown ring, proposing and telling Dawn that he would unalive himself if she didn't say yes. Steady on, Al, you've known her less than a month. Whilst Al was off TV in December, things got a different kind of uncomfortable when Dawn promised the infuriated Tori that she wouldn't marry her father if she instead slept with her. Despite this, Dawn went back on her word and she and Al had a televised wedding in January, and in a fashion suited to the perverse and fetish-driven angle, they did it all in their skivvies. Whilst it was certainly an odd sight, the wedding itself went off without an issue, although we would soon come to find out that the gratuitous consummation of the marriage led to Al's death. Because why not? This story has everything else. You may as well add in death by Snoo Snoo as well. Number 9. Jay Lethal and SoCal Val. Perhaps the greatest wrestling wedding of all time, Macho Man and Ms. Elizabeth deserves a mention on this list because it was genuinely heartwarming. It's relevant here because Jay Lethal in 2008 was not just doing his best Randy Savage impression, but mirroring Macho's wedding drip and a shining gold suit and hat. At Slammiversary that year, Lethal and girlfriend SoCal Val were due to tie the knot. However, after months of teasing it, Lethal's friend Sonjay Dutt finally put himself in the way of the marriage by making his feelings known. He couldn't allow his friend to marry Val because he himself was in love with her. This resulted in Lethal getting part of the scenery cracked across his back, and then, as was the TNA style at the time, an intensely overbooked series of run-ins that were all dependent on wrestling nostalgia. The wedding party took to the ring to take on Dutt, including Ace Young, Coco Beware, and Kamala. It reached new levels of absurd as the segment went off the air, Sonjay having Jake the Snake's python dropped on him as George the Animal Steel chowed down on a turnbuckle. Wrestling weddings are always weird, but this was like unloading the contents of a circus into the proceedings. Number 8. Teddy Long and Crystal Marshall. This 20-minute segment was just a bizarre sequence that started with bride-to-be Crystal Marshall tripping on her dress on the steps to the ring and falling right back down. Following this, the couple was serenaded by a live performance of Meet Me at the Altar by Jagged Edge, complete with the sight of Vince McMahon awkwardly swaying back and forth in his chair. Following this, Jillian Hall stomped her way to the ring to decry the performance and wanted to give one of her own before being dragged out. The Godfather was next down the ramp, interrupting the ceremony to start a hoe train and leading out nearly all of Long and Marshall's guests. Finally, it was time for the vows and one final interruption, Long's heart giving out. The general manager stopped before I do, suffering a kayfabe heart attack that saw him fall into a coma. To make matters worse, Marshall left the company due to creative differences soon thereafter, and the story trailed off without a real ending, breaking Long's heart for the second time. Number 7. Edge and Vicky Guerrero. In 2007, Vicky Guerrero took up the role of general manager of SmackDown whilst Teddy Long planned and then recovered from his wedding. In the months following, she began a romantic relationship with Edge and would abuse her power to get him in positions where he could eventually win the World Heavyweight Championship. 3 months after becoming public about their relationship, as well as forming the stable La Familia, Edge proposed to Vicky on SmackDown. After he lost the title and his temper with his fiancée, Edge called the wedding off, but cooler heads prevailed and they eventually tied the knot. The ceremony occurred off-air, but that night's episode of SmackDown hosted the reception for the happy couple, which is where things inevitably came undone. Enter a snidely smiling Triple H, who revealed to the blushing bride videotape footage of Edge kissing their wedding planner, the newly debuting Alicia Fox, behind her back. The couple were off and on again for the next year until Vicky was ready to be written off TV. Not going out with a physical injury, more an emotional one, she did get the revelation of something we'd all known all along, that the ultimate opportunist had married her for power and nothing else. Sorry Vicky, but the clue was in the name really. Number 6. Bobby Lashley and Lana. Interruptions during wrestling wrestling weddings come as standard, but the union of Bobby Lashley and Lana at least found a new way to surprise fans. 15 minutes rolled by of your standard fare of interjections, this time with former lovers of the future husband and wife. After being resoundingly disposed of, Lana found herself rushing the priest to get to the point. However, there was one final twist which nobody saw coming, for quite good reason. Liv Morgan noted her objection to the ceremony, not naming who, but saying that she was in love with someone in that ring and that their love had gotten her through the year. That person, uncharacteristically, was Lana. However, the scene soon changed as the two women began fighting, and then, after waiting what must have felt like an eternity, they were joined by Lana's former husband Rusev, popping out of a plastic cake wearing an adorable bow tie. It was absolutely bizarre and was met with some very mixed reactions, but the numbers spoke for themselves. A clip of the wedding was one of WWE's most successful YouTube uploads of the year. Despite this, the story fizzled out pretty fast, as WWE's writers' room clearly didn't have the ability to construct such a nuanced piece of work. Number 5. Lita and Kane. In April 2004, Kane, who had unmasked 9 months previous, began a fascination with Matt Hardy's real-life and on-screen girlfriend Lita. Hardy and Kane would repeatedly get into fights, and Kane would give his demonic attempt at goo-goo eyes at Lita, going so far at one point to even kidnap her. Before long, Lita announced that she was pregnant, and Kane claimed to be the father, which was ultimately proven to be true. Because this is wrestling and women have no power in this era, Lita's hand in marriage was put on the line in a till death do us part match at SummerSlam, where Kane came out victorious. The following week, Kane surprised fans by turning up to his wedding in a beautiful white suit, walking to the ring to an amusing cello version of his chilling theme song. Lita, disgusted by having to go through with things, mourned her independence by coming to the ring in a black gown, with Kane visibly upset. The big white-suited monster's vows made it explicit that Kane saw his future wife as property. Of course, the ceremony ended with Matt Hardy's interruption, although coming too late and ineffectual, and the groom from hell ended the wedding from hell triumphantly. Well, that sucks for Lita, but at least she has a bun in the oven to be excited about, right? Ugh, this is all rotten even by WWE standards. Number 4. Rosemary and Bravo. Like death and taxes, two angles in wrestling are certain: weddings and whodunits. In this particular case, we had a delicious slice of both pies. The most recent entry in this list saw the union of Rosemary and the hilariously named John E. Bravo on Impact in October 2020. Whilst the pandemic meant no crowds, it did have the unexpected benefit of letting the writers really do some out-of-the-box stuff. This included Ethan Page fighting his alter ego Karate Man, and the suspicion that a returning EC3 was a figment of Moose's imagination. This wedding fits nicely alongside those in a way, but from the outset, aside from the usual weirdness that comes with Rosemary, it seems pretty plain. It wasn't until the I do that things took a turn. Suddenly, the lights went out and a gunshot rang through the empty arena. Sure enough, when the lights came up, Bravo was lying dead, having been kayfabe shot in the chest. Prompting the audience at home to join them for the mystery, Tommy Dreamer asked, "Who shot Bravo?" before bellowing out a hilarious elongated "No!" Number 3. Billy and Chuck. By 2002, Billy Gunn and Chuck Palumbo had entered into a tag team together, with their whole shtick being, are they or aren't they gay? After enough time and dick jokes, WWE decided to further the story by having the two get engaged. Around this time, WWE partnered with GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, who wanted to make sure this was handled sensibly. GLAAD seemed extremely happy to be helping mold a positive storyline about a gay wedding on television, especially in 2002, where it wasn't legal in any state. They were clearly bamboozled, however, as there were no plans for Billy and Chuck to actually be gay characters. At the commitment ceremony, the two men said their vows. Just before the final moments, however, Chuck began shouting at their manager Rico that it wasn't supposed to go this far. The whole ceremony was merely a way to get some attention. Exactly how far it was supposed to go, you'll never know. The wedding was interrupted. The slow, shrill-voiced officiant suddenly revealed that underneath his genuinely quite impressive makeup was Eric Bischoff, and Billy and Chuck found themselves taken out by 3-minute warning. No wrestlers saw any success out of this angle, but WWE, just as Rico had hoped, got people talking and eyes on the product. Number 2. Lita and Edge. Both no strangers to scandalous wrestling weddings, Lita and Edge appropriately appear again on this list, but this time together. Of course, the most uncomfortable part of this storyline is the fact that it was playing on real-world truths, and the two horrible heels who were obsessed with each other were hard to watch because of what they'd done to Lita's real-life ex, Matt Hardy. It was public knowledge that her and Edge's relationship began as a real affair, and it's what drove them to be be booed so viciously. Capitalizing on this heat, WWE had them walk down the aisle together. The wedding has several iconic moments of its own, such as Lita's trust in her more than skimpy dress actually doing its job, and proclaiming that she was happy to be the slut of the century if it meant being with Edge. Teasing the fans by playing Matt Hardy's music, the two laughed at how clever and evil they were, before Lita's kayfabe ex-husband Kane poked his head up through the canvas like an evil gopher and tombstoned the officiant. Kane, who was now a babyface despite forcing Lita into her previous on-screen marriage, and Matt Hardy, who was sitting at home and seeing his real-life ex marrying his friend on TV. Yikes. And number 1, Stephanie McMahon and Test. This list has had wrestlers being forced into wedlock, lying about their sexuality, and even dying on their wedding night, but none get quite as gross nor as memorable as the night that Stephanie McMahon found out she had married the wrong man. Test had been a member of the corporation for a few years and wanted Vince's daughter's hand in marriage. He proved himself by defeating Shane O'Mac in a love her or leave her match at SummerSlam 1999, and so the wedding ceremony was due to go ahead on Raw, if not for the interference of perpetual wedding ruiner Triple H. Presenting video evidence of the reason why Steph couldn't marry Test, fans were shocked to see Trips rolling up to a drive-through chapel in Las Vegas with an unconscious McMahon in his convertible. Yes, he was Stephanie's husband already, and there were even some slightly disturbing implications about consummating the union. Then again, it's known what Triple H is into by looking at the Katie Vick storyline. The later twist that it was all a ruse between the two to get under the skin of Vince might have felt a little odd, but it doesn't stop this moment going down as the most iconic ruined wedding in WWE history, as well as an often replayed moment of the Attitude Era's most extreme hits. Never forget that the on-screen union of WWE's power couple started like this. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these wrestling weddings shocked you the most? And of course, let us know of any others that we didn't include. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to whatculture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for What Culture, and have a good week.